Cars should be outlawed. Welcome to this episode. Let's go straight into funworld. Yeah, so I don't really mean that. It's just a bit of hyperbole. But I do want to talk today about why it would be better to have fewer cars and some policies that would make things better in terms of that. So while we're waiting for funworld to load, let me just say I do like driving generally. I've just did a road trip in the United States, and I like driving most places. I think I talked previously about how I don't really like driving in Germany because you have no speed limit on the highway, and this actually makes it a lot more unpleasant to drive. What are we doing in Minecraft today? All right, I wanted to make a basement, right? Let's work on it. Ah, this is so nostalgic. In Japanese, we say Natsukashi, which means nostalgic, and that's what we say. We say it all the time. I do. I don't know if Japanese people do. I just do. Don't take your Japanese advice from me. Let's see. One more. One more here. All right, that should be okay. So yeah, I do like driving, but there's a bunch of problems with cars. And there's a bunch of things we can do to make things better. So how shall we start this? Yeah, so I wouldn't want cars to be completely outlawed. And I also think, like, electric cars are good. They're better, for sure. They don't, like, solve every problem I have with cars, but... Ooh, and we're in the darkness. Technology fails us once more. That's basically what I'm talking about. Nice. Oh, I'm so bad at this game. But there are a bunch of things that are not so great. So, for example, I live in Tokyo, right? And cars are not as big of a problem here than they are in many other places. But generally, I think one policy that is quite good, and I know it's a bit of a... what do you say? Like, them are fighting words when you say this. But if cars are not allowed in the center of a city, that's actually not a bad thing for anyone, really. That's almost always a good thing for everyone. So, like, say if you're, like, for 1 or 2 kilometers inside in the middle of a city, you just have communal transportation and, well, walking. It just makes the city a lot better, more pleasant. In Japan, for example, in Tokyo, they sometimes close streets on the weekend, and it's just, you can just see how much nicer it is. And generally, things are very walkable here, which is good for your health. Very, very good for your health. And if you don't have cars riding around, you can also do a lot more with, like, public transportation, right? Like, you can have, like, a very good... you can have, like, buses, you can have trains and things like that. You can have these either way, but if you don't have cars riding around, like, there's a lot more less danger, there's a lot less pollution. It's just better to not have them in the middle of cities, in my opinion. That's one of my stronger beliefs, so maybe I shouldn't have opened with that one. But yeah, so that's kind of like more of my let's outlaw things opinion. But there's also a bunch of things we could do if we don't want to particularly... What do I want to do? Maybe some cobblestone. That might be nice. Because I destroyed my stairs. And now they're recovered. So there's definitely a bunch of things that make absolutely no sense, right? So, for example, having parking on the side of the road is it's terrible. You're like in Germany, it's allowed, but really, it's a huge subsidy to drivers, right? Like, why are we paying for your parking spot? Basically, you know, and even like they shouldn't be paid either, right? Because it's like it's an eyesore to the city. It takes away space. It's just really awful. I just think like cities should not provide uh, roadside parking at all. Um, just it costs like if you are in like a big city, you just imagine how much that actually um would cost to have to buy. Ooh, Moonset, also very nice. To buy a parking space like that, and you can just imagine like that's just a random subsidy to either someone who lives there, if it's a parking spot that's only for people who live around the parts, or just for whoever has a car at the time. And I just think like society doesn't really need to pay for this, especially since it comes with so many other negatives. So I would say you should not allow roadside parking, which Japan generally doesn't. Like in Tokyo is completely devoid of this, and it works great. There's less cars. It's much more pleasant to walk. You can just walk on the sidewalk. There's no weird cars, you know, taking your space or anything like that. It's wonderful, to be honest. It's basically a utopia, if I may say so. Um, so and while we're talking about weird subsidies that we just give to car owners, not everywhere, obviously, but in some places. Maybe I should like say like I'm mostly talking about Germany does this badly, Japan does this better, but it could be even better. But one thing we're doing is like why are highways free in Germany? Like highways are more or less completely free. I mean, there's now a toll for trucks that they were trying to leverage only on foreigners. Well, that didn't work out, on if you know what I mean. Oh, Germany sure got sued for that one. Um, Cost us a lot of money. Ooh wee. Um, okay, I'm actually conflating two things, but you can read up on this for yourself. Ooh, a creeper. The problem is creepers. Oh, okay, he saw me. Gotta deal with this. Yep. Okay, got him. Got him. Yeah, I'm conflating two things. You can look this up, but it's no big deal. Either way, there's tolls. There should be tolls for highways because this is like a lot of public money that's being spent on maintaining and building new highways, and that shouldn't really be leveraged on everyone. I personally think like there's two reasons to not do it, and well, the one is the one I said, like the cost for all this building. Why should that be like generally, paid for by everyone? It seems very really like should be more by usage, especially since it's something that has so many negative effects on the environment, on people's health, on personal health, on well, what other negative effects does it have? I don't know, lots of them. You just think about it. Cars bad. Um, but and the other thing is like, since we do want more trains, I mean, I want more trains, and people who care about the environment want more trains, and also usually poorer people can use trains if the pricing is right. We shouldn't like subsidize cars, but then not to the same degree subsidize trains. And really, we should way more subsidize trains. I mean, in Germany, we used to have the €9 ticket, and I personally think like we should have at least a €9 ticket, and even cheaper, and then also intercity travel, like what in Japan would be the bullet train, the Shinkansen, would also be way cheaper. But car travel over like long distances should be way more expensive. Like it makes really no sense to just favor one much worse type of travel. Like I was shocked when we were in the United States. There are carpool lanes. This is another thing. Policies that are pretty good. Carpool lanes are a good idea. Like where if you are two people or more, you can use them, and if you're alone, you can't use them. Like a ridiculous amount of cars have only one person in them, and like cars are big. I don't know if you noticed that, and they can like at least seat 5 people, and most of them just have one person in it. That's a waste of time, and not well time too. Is it a waste of time? I don't know. It's a waste of space, waste of resources. It's terrible. It's awful. So a bit of a rant here. Yeah. So carpool lanes, good idea. Tolls, good idea. Car free inner cities, great idea. Love it. And so I don't think like this kind of personal transportation through cars needs to be outlawed. Like especially if you look at the countryside, like it's very much needed there, and that's where it should be used, really, right? Like this is kind of like a city versus countryside thing. Like no one who lives in the countryside should be um deprived of being able to have a car. And that's why I also think like it makes sense for having non-highways, like local roads, to be free use. That makes a lot of sense. But once you go on a highway, basically, or once you go into a city, you should have limits, right? So I think like this, like there should be like park and ride opportunities. So my idea is like if you so you live in the countryside, right? Like you either drive to the next train station and from there become part of the train network if you need to go to a city, or you drive if you want to the city, but you're not allowed to drive inside of the city because it just has so many negative effects. It's like dangerous for people with disabilities. They might get run over. It's dangerous for old people. It's dangerous for children. There's terrible air quality because of this. I think like Tokyo has a surprisingly good air quality for as big of a city as it is, and I think it's in large parts the cars. It's just the lack of cars. And that would get even better, obviously, if like everything was electric, which would be great. But even then, I would say like let's not have that headache. Inner cities, just let's have them car free. We can build better cities that way. So that makes a lot of sense to me, and I hope it makes sense to you. I mean, if you disagree, write something in the comments, but know that you're wrong. And if you agree, you're right. What else? What else were we talking about? Other options like there's this argument often like with car free inner cities is that like there might be some disabled people who need very personal transportation, but you can make like exceptions for certain things, like, and especially you could have like some sort of forms of transportation which are much more individual. And if you actually went for changing cities in that way, and who using highways less, then there would be like a lot more possible solutions to this kind of thing that are completely forgone now because of our reliance on cars. So by the way, if you live in a place where you're like, what the fuck is he talking about? This is I cannot relate, then it's probably not about your place. If you have, I don't know, I don't know anything about any places, so your mileage may vary. But talk about Germany, or I think also the US, and definitely England, and Japan comparatively. I think all of these policies would be a huge boon to people generally. And going back again to that, I talked about this a couple months ago, the €9 ticket. So a ticket for about like $10 or whatever. I was bad with conversions last time, but you get me, right? For local trains, for anyone who wants it, it's such a good thing for especially people who don't have like a lot of money, who can like then partake in society in much more positive way, without having to worry too much about how much this costs. Like I said, we did try this in Germany, and like one of the big criticisms of it is that the trains were too full. It's like That's a good thing. That means it's being used, you know. That means it's incredibly successful. Like, sure, maybe we need more trains, maybe we need better trains, but this shows people want it. Like, if at the right price, they will use trains. And it's the same thing here. You know, the train network is really good. It could be cheaper, but it is relatively affordable to go places depending on where you know, from where to where you go. Um, and so it's just massively used, and it's much more useful than a car, right? Like in almost all circumstances. So if you have like a really well developed train network, reasonable prices, subsidized prices, we can really like enable people to be much more mobile, use much less environmentally and health damaging transportation, and yeah, have much better cities. So that is my stance on that one. Oh, I remember what I wanted to do in terms of Minecraft. I wanted to plant some wheat. Don't know exactly where. Oh man, I'm way too fully packed. Not good. Let's just. That is not at all what I wanted to do. But yeah, so that's my opinion on that one. And I don't usually make videos where I'm that specific on my, or as that passionate about my point of view. I feel like. How do I? I don't know. I don't think so. But yeah, this one is actually quite important to me. I really want that to happen. I want to live in the city that implements these policy options. And I mean, like I said, Tokyo's pretty good about this already. So I'm not unhappy, but it's just one of these things, right? Like things could be better, and they could be better for basically everyone, almost everyone, even people who like love their cars now. Life would be better though, you know. And you could even like have like taxis or whatever if you want, like, you know, have non-personal transportation, like if you really need it as like a transition or something like that. It's much more limited, you know, much less wasteful, because the car's basically driving around all the time, you know. So yeah, a better city is possible, is what I'm saying, and I hope to see it. Okay, so I'm gonna quit this one here. It actually went longer than I expected. I guess I just rambled on there for a little bit. Either way, you guys stay spooky, and I see you in the next one.